Not sure how to measure your internal communications? Prove the worth of your internal communication strategy with Contact Monkey's email solution, built into Outlook and Gmail. With Contact Monkey, you will be able to track and analyze employee engagement from your inbox. Start measuring email opens, link clicks, location tracking, and various forms of employee feedback, such as Employee Net Promoter Score. To try Contact Monkey's free demo, visit www.contactmonkey.com/ICPro. One more real quick thing. Hey, thanks to our listeners who've taken the time to rate and review our podcast. These reviews help us iterate. It's part of the reason why we shortened this season's episode to be more bite-sized. Help our new listeners find us by leaving a rating and a review today. I'm Sarah Jackson. Welcome to Internal Comms Pro, the podcast. This season, we're closing the gap. I've tracked down the experts that can help us as internal communicators close the gap from where we are now to where we need to be. We're connecting the dots to drive value and lead from the inside out.
We are at a tipping point for internal communicators. And I know people are underwater because of COVID. But I'm also going to tell you that in the same way the internet changed marketers, I believe COVID will change internal communication.
That's Tarek Kamil, CEO of Circle. Now, last week in part 1 of this series, Tarek gave us the definition of ROI, how to calculate it, and how to communicate it to your C-suite. We talked about what is a good ROI and learn new terms like hurdle rate. Today, we continue our conversation in part 2 of this series and get the inside scoop on how CEOs think, the psychology behind your IT department, and how to get above the work so you can be strategic. Now let's jump in as Tarek talks about the key question you need to ask, particularly if you are looking to upgrade a tool or a product.
A lot of it's learning, really. If you were thinking about upgrading your intranet or bringing in a new vendor, and we do this, for our customers that we're talking to, is we provide this for them because we know that eventually leadership is going to want to know, if you do this, what is the value to our business? And so we want to give them all the information they need to make a good decision and to present that. But things that are frequently missed are, what is IT going to charge us for this upgrade, implementation, working with this vendor? There is a cost internally that you have to factor because IT's time is expensive. If they're working on this, they're not working on something else. And the CFO, that is how they think. So you can't just come in and say, hey, the vendor is going to charge us $100,000 and a $20,000 setup fee. Your cost is not $120,000. Your cost will be $120,000 plus. What is your staff time? There's time involved with this. There's time involved with training and learning and dealing with this and getting it up and running. There is IT time. Yeah. How much time from IT? And you can ask them, and they should be part of that conversation as well. Eventually, you're going to come up with a number that's your vendor cost, your internal cost. This is the true cost of doing this. Mm-hmm. And then you want to factor that against what is the true benefit of doing this. Now you have everything you need to calculate ROI and present it internally.
We've talked about the CFO. We've talked about going to the CHRO. Can we talk about IT for just a hot minute? Because, with you playing that, not only that role in a previous life and having a technical background, are there tips that you can give our group? I mean, I hear it, not in all companies, but in some companies, whenever we bring up working with IT, there's a heaviness sometimes that I feel that kind of bubbles up. Why is this, and why is it sometimes difficult to work with IT? Give us the the psychology of how IT people think, and maybe some tips on how they can be approached, and we can communicate and work with them a little bit better.
And I don't want to stereotype, but I think in general, if you are an IT, you are normally an engineer, which means by definition, you solve problems. That is how you think, and that is how your brain is wired. So when business people come to IT and say, hey, I found this shiny new thing, they do not respond to that. They need to understand, what problem are you solving? Otherwise, they view you as, well, that's adorable, but no, we're not doing that. Because you haven't given me a problem in what is this really solving? So with the CFO, it's all about driving value. With HR, it's all about finding talent and retaining talent. With IT, it is about, what problem are you solving? You need to lead with the problem. So if you come in and say, hey, we've been talking to all these vendors and we've selected this vendor and we're ready for you to evaluate them. They hate that. They hate that they're being brought in late. They hate that they don't understand what problem you're trying to solve. It feels like you're creating work for them. So you need to approach it very, very differently. You need to start with, we're trying to solve this problem of delivering communication to our employees in a timely way where we don't overwhelm them, and it drives this much value to the business. So this is how we've been thinking. Help us think through this. That is what they want to hear, that you have delivered a problem to their doorstep that they can help you think through. Now they'll be your best friend.
That is so good, because we do get excited and we come with the slick, marketing brochure, and we go even to the CFO. They don't care. You're right. Or the CTO. They don't care about the vendor per se, but we do lead with the vendor and the tool that we want, not the problem. That's so good. Okay. All right. So I'm getting excited about all of this, and it's like when we go to a conference and we come back all inspired, and then what happens? Well, what happens is I come back to my desk and I've got, an email that I now have to get out, and a newsletter that I have to review, and I got to prepare for the town hall meeting, and all of this sounds amazing and great, but I don't even know how to get there. So can you give me a first step of, if I want to elevate my team or myself, if I'm a 1-person shop, a 4-person team, a 10-person team, how do I even start to revamp our department to thinking this way? How do I even get above the work to even be clearing my head? Give me one thing that I can do to move in the direction of talking this way and thinking this way.
Well, let me take a different spin on that question. So I think I understand what you're asking, and I think because of the time we're in with COVID, we are at a tipping point for internal communicators. And the analogy I like to give is marketing 30 years ago. So marketing 30 years ago, it was arts and craft. It was Mad Men. It was drinking scotch at noon and making shit up. That's literally what they did, because there's no way to measure what they were doing. Print ads, TV ads, billboards, radio, you can't measure any of this, right? So ROI didn't exist for them. Then the internet came. Now we can measure. Now we can show the value of what you do. Guess who shows up on the scene? Chief Marketing Officer. That did not exist. Marketing was a joke 30 years ago. Today, it is one of the most important parts of any organization, because we can see the value they're providing to the bottom line. We have that opportunity right now, and I know people are underwater because of COVID, but I'm also going to tell you that In the same way the internet changed marketers, I believe COVID will change internal communication. What has happened, and again, we're seeing this across all companies, all sizes, all industries, they are now viewed as strategic. We've never been through anything like this. Leadership is turning to you and asking, what should we do? That is strategy. That is where you should be. And normally you're not. Normally, internal comms is very tactical. Do this, do that, support our business units. They are not thought of as strategic, just like marketing wasn't strategic. But they are now. Internal comms, because of COVID, has been elevated to be strategic. The key to staying there is ROI. You have the ear. You have the seat at the table. You have that. How do you prevent it from going back to tactical? ROI is the answer. They are listening to you. Now that you can start showing your value with ROI and numbers and things that resonate with leadership, that is how you stay there. So this question came up at ALI. I think it was around, what does the future of work look like? And what's one thing you can take away from COVID? And my answer was that, exactly that. You are strategic. Use ROI now to stay there.
Now, these last two episodes have featured Tarek Kamil, CEO and founder of Circle. If you want in the Leadership Club, friends, you should take a look at how the team at Circle empowers their customers. Now, they have a product called Circle Broadcast, and you can simplify and innovate your IC tech stack with their cross-channel comms approach. With one click, you can publish and send your content to your employee email, SharePoint, and mobile app. Now your employees can consume it on the channel of their choice. It's so innovative. Head on over to circle.com/ICP to learn more about their unique internal comms solution. That's CERKL.com/ICP. Anyway, I'm going to yell 4 here, as this is a warning that we shout when the ball is heading towards a person. So things get a little heated here as my frustration only increases. So do you do this with your own employees? I mean, is everybody now coming up to your door and speaking ROI, or how have you coached them to operate this way? What do you do with your own team internally?
I'm not following this question because
I need you to give us some tactical things to think about, because they still don't know the first step of where to start here, because you keep telling me the same thing, but I don't know how to go back to my desk with all this shit to do and how to get there from here to there. It's too big of a gap. So how do I actually get there? Okay, so what do your teams do? I mean, I can't imagine if you're thinking this way and then internally, does everyone now have to report ROI to you all the time? Like, how are you coaching your own employees to show ROI?
I think it is a cultural mindset. And so when I meet with different departments within Circle, one of the questions I like to ask is, how are you going to drive value to this business? And so I really want everyone to think that way. Everything at the end of the day, the bottom line is, how are you creating more value? If everyone thinks this way, and they can start making internal decisions, if I could do A or I could do B, which one would drive more value to the business? And if you're unsure, you can ask leadership, hey, I've got 2 options. Which one do you think will drive more value to the business? And eventually, that is how people just think. Is this really the best use of my time? Is this really creating value? Or is this just something we've always done and no one has ever stopped to question? This doesn't even really help our business. It's just something we've always done. So I like to get people into a culture of value. ROI is one way to show that, but eventually you want people just think value all the time. And if everyone thought that way, it is scary, I think, what companies could achieve.
So you're saying I would uncover that by going to leadership and figuring out what their main business goals are, business objectives. Like, how am I uncovering what actually provides value?
Yes, I think that is exactly how you would do it. So I think it is a combination of understanding what does the business want to achieve this year, and really asking strategic questions. If you want to be thought of as strategic, you need to ask these questions. You can't be just doing what we've always done, especially in COVID times. Now is the time to be disruptive. Do we really need to be doing this? Is this the best use of my time when I'm trying to engage thousands of people working from home? No, it is not. Push back. You know it's not right. And now you have the power and the opportunity to challenge things. We've always done it that way, but that doesn't mean it's right.
Okay, so get me to the point of, again, closing the gap. I'm underwater with all the COVID. I get inspired. I hear this episode. What do I do when I get back to my desk? What's the first thing that I'm going to do so that I can start to move my team towards organizing my day with things that drive value to the business? How do I even begin to sift through all this work now that I've committed to and get out from underneath that to even think about this?
I think there's a couple of different ways that you can go about it. The first way is if you are currently viewed in a strategic way, you want to hold on to that. And so you want to start now going back and you want to start asking and challenging things. We've always done this. I don't believe this is the right thing to do, and here's why. I believe we should be doing X, Y, and Z. Great. So you want to maintain that strategic positioning that COVID has given you. I know people cuss and they're upset about COVID, but there are some positives that have come of that. So that's number one. Number two is you really need to look at what you're spending time on. Does this make sense? Should we continue to keep doing that? And if the answer is yes, we should keep doing that. Is this the most efficient way for us to do that thing? Could we outsource this? Are there tools that we could buy that can save us time, that we could be more strategic with our time and automate things that we've always done? It's taken a long time. What if we could automate some of these things away to save us more time? So it is a combination of things, but I can't stress this enough. This period of COVID is the opportunity for you to change how internal communication is viewed within your organization.
Okay, so I think that's good tactical tips for us, that to look at the day and find out what are we spending our time on, and then finding out what of all these things can we automate. The other tip that I just finished an interview with Greg Bardsley from Equinix and Calvin Seaman from ATB, who I think is a Circle customer.
Yes.
And two of the things they did was set up a resource center. So there's certain levels of internal communications that their department will only do, kind of higher level, but then they empower other parts of their organization with templates and toolkits where they can execute some of the, lower level type, for lack of a better word, communication. I want to talk about Calvin because, my goodness, they have a team of 21 people, and they're so innovative. And I remember at ALI us talking to Calvin and the powerful question that you asked Calvin. You remember this?
Yes, I do. So I believe this was in Philadelphia. We were at an event and Calvin and his team presented about some of the innovative things they were doing at ATB. And I asked the question, and I'm in the audience just like everyone else, and I asked the question to Calvin. It was the chicken and egg question. What came first? Did your leadership just from day one value employees, communication, internal comms, and understand what it means to the business? Or did you show your value this is what we're capable of, and let me show you the ROI and all these things, and then they would give you more resources. And I asked, what came first? And they are very rare. Leadership, just from day one, they love the employees. They love their culture. They spend and give to their employees, and they want to innovate. But that is very rare. More times than not, the way you get elevated within your organization is showing the value of what you're doing, and then they trust you and they give you more. And I go back to marketing 30 years ago, which we've discussed. That wasn't the case for them. They had to show their value. There was no CMO. That just did not exist because they couldn't show their value. So most companies are structured in a way where you need to show your value first, and then we'll give you more. Some companies, I think it's definitely the exception, they just out of the gate understand the value of communicating to employees.
So do you see this with your customers? I mean, you being, a tech guy, you're always talking about future and looking at 10 steps ahead. What are you seeing with your customers and internal communication? What's the future hold for them? I mean, do you see a time where there'll be a chief internal comms officer?
Well, I think today we see it all over the place. So sometimes internal comms reports to legal, operations, HR, marketing. There's no real home for it. And I do see that this because of COVID, things have been accelerated in a way we've never seen before. And my biggest fear for internal comms is that it's going to go back to the way it was whenever this vaccine comes out and we go back to life as usual, if that ever happens. I'm worried that it's going to get right back to just do what we tell you to do, be tactical. I don't want that. I want you to hold on to the strategic position. And I really believe this topic of ROI is how you do that. It is exactly what marketing did, and you see how they've elevated themselves within every organization. I believe COVID is an opportunity, and ROI is the way you stay at the strategic level.
If you could go back to your company 5 years ago before they started to help internal communicators, what do you wish you would have known or would have seen? What's been your biggest learning and working with this industry?
I think my biggest learning is that employees aren't number one in most companies. They frequently value sales. They frequently value what the customer has to say, product decisions or service decisions. And I fundamentally believe that employees are the most important part of any organization. That's just how I am wired. I believe that to be true. And it was interesting that not everybody shares my same perspective. And I think internal communicators do, but selling that up to leadership has always been a challenge. It's always been viewed as a cost center. You're not a cost center. You're the most important part of this organization. You are the fabric that ties everything together. Without you, this company falls apart. And the fact that they're viewed as a cost center is amazing to me. Marketing is not a cost center. Why would internal communication be viewed as a cost center? Well, the reason is because no one is stopping to show this is the value we're providing you. You now have the answers to do that. ROI, it is not difficult. My contact information is out there. I've offered, and I've had people take me up on this, communicators. Reach out to me, ask me, hey, this is what I'm trying to get accomplished. How would I calculate this ROI? Help me figure this out. I love this. I love math. I love solving problems. This is what I love to do. So I really genuinely want to help people figure this out, because this is how you will elevate how you are perceived in that organization. And it's where you should be, but sometimes you need something like COVID and ROI to stay there.
And what are you looking at for your company's new normal? What are you guys working on? What's next in the world of Circle, and how are you guys handling and tackling this back end of heading into the fall? What are you working on?
Well, we're all remote. I don't know when we'll go back. I believe that we are more productive now than we have ever been, which is saying a lot at Circle. So I feel really good about how we've been positioned, how we communicate, how we collaborate. All those things make me feel good. And I think everyone's excited that companies are being forced to reevaluate and think about innovating how they communicate to their employees, which is what we've been saying for years. Take a look at this. This is the right thing to do. This is how you should treat them. And so I feel really excited about kind of where we are. I feel excited about some of the new channels that we're working on, so like Microsoft Teams and integrations with Slack and those types of things. And then there's some other bigger things that we're working on. I think that'll be out next year.
Well, we will make sure, no pun intended, that we circle back with you to hear.
Oh, I've never heard that one before, Sarah.
To hear what's coming out. I know that, and when we pick partners, for our collective, we always make sure that they share our passion to really quickly accelerate, the professional position and status and credibility of internal communicators. And so I can't thank you enough for your financial support of our collective and just your support in giving us the technical perspective and really leadership, the CEO perspective, for our listeners. It's just invaluable. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Enjoyed it.
Well, friends, there you have it. Hitting the rough, bunkers, bogeys, it's all par for the course when you're in the middle of what they call a swing change. But a small tweak here and there, learning the etiquette, the nuances, along with numbers, is how we resonate with the Leadership Club. And I'm glad that you're part of our club, a club where we can be open, vulnerable, and just get a little bit better every day. A club of, friends. Keep your head down, as they say in golf. Stay focused on this one swing thought this week. Remember, ROI is how you show your value. Stay with us as our journey to closing the gap continues next week.
Internal Comms Pro, the podcast, is produced by Super Awesome Media. Our theme music is Big Vision by Purple Planet Music. Have a follow-up question for today's guest? You can submit your question or ask it live during our new Backstage Live event series. To register for the show, submit a question for today's guest, or to download our free resource guide, visit www.internalcommspro.com/show notes and click on this episode. And to learn about Circle, visit circle.com/ICP. That's CERKL.com/ICP. Thank you for listening.